Hello dear friends. What a country economy can be imagined without a chain saw? Well, what else, if not a chain saw? You can cut firewood, and during construction, a chain saw in general for many becomes a tool number one. There is no doubt that such a thing should be available in any suburban economy. We'll talk about it, namely the chain saw and its types. Today, the chain saw is presented in three variations: gasoline, mains-powered and cordless. Facing a choice between a gasoline and an electric saw, many cannot decide which option will be more reliable and practical. In this video, I will try to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of this tool. We will compare the gasoline, mains electric and cordless type of saws, and also consider their pros and cons. After that, I hope you will be able to make the right and meaningful choice, having understood which type of device is most suitable for you. When buying a chain saw, the main thing is to clearly define for yourself what goals are pursued when buying this tool. If you just need a saw just to cut firewood at home, this is one thing. For a household hobby that you do from time to time, it is another, but if you are a builder, this is the third thing. Gasoline saw. Gasoline saws are divided into several classes: household, semi-professional and professional. What is their difference? In simple terms, it is like a tablet, laptop and powerful desktop computer. Household models, designed for short-term work with obligatory breaks, mainly made of more inexpensive materials, have a minimum set of options and are not designed for serious loads. The household version of saws is most common in everyday life precisely because of the main criterion: a low price. Professional chainsaws are a serious and expensive tool that is used in logging or in other situations where the most important thing is not price, but reliability. Such saws have the greatest power, the longest headset and the longest motor life. This tool is designed for a long time without shutdown. All components and parts are reinforced and a better quality. The professional tool has a maximum set of useful options, such as an increased volume of the oil and gasoline tank, heated grips, easy start, convenient access to the filter and spark plug, forged crankshaft, oil supply adjustment, etc. All this far from complete set of the options I have listed is designed to ensure that the operator, working with this tool all day, would be comfortable, and the tool would withstand heavy loads and would not break. Therefore, for the occasional harvesting of firewood or pruning of knots, the purchase of such a tool is simply not economically justified. In the chain saw hierarchy, semi-professional saws occupy the middle position. This class, in comparison with the household one, may have a greater number of useful options and more wear-resistant components. Such saws, in contrast to household saws, can have more power, have a longer service life and a longer duration of work with fewer intervals. More advanced buyers often choose the semi-professional option for greater reliability. Therefore, most often these models can be found at construction sites, or in households where harvesting, for example, firewood is not limited to cutting one log. Pros and cons of a gasoline saw. Having summarized the classification of chainsaws, let's look at the strengths and weaknesses of this tool as a whole. One of the most important merits of a chainsaw in its mobility. Probably, no one will argue that working away from electrical networks with a chainsaw is cheaper and more practical than with an electric chainsaw connected to a generator. The chainsaw is mobile. You can take it with you wherever you go, without thinking about whether there will be electricity there or not. The main thing is to have gasoline and oil in stock. Another advantage of the chainsaw is its higher performance compared to the electric one of the same power. This is due to the speed of the chain or the number of revolutions, which are always higher for the gasoline version. Just as paradoxical as it may seem, the chainsaw, with all its complex design, in carrying hands, is a fairly reliable tool that can work in various conditions, such as in the rain or snow. Now, after my words, probably many exploded with indignation. Is the gasoline saw reliable? Do not make me laugh. Something is constantly happening to her. It won't start. Then the gasoline in the saw ran out. But here I am willing to bet, since chainsaws can be of different quality. And if we are talking about some kind of saw without a name and brand, then here, in fact, most likely, it is so. It is precisely such low quality and cheap crafts that formed the public opinion that a gasoline saw is not a reliable tool. It's all about quality. For a long time there have been legends about the saws of famous brands. Some of them are already many years old, but they all work and work. Yes, of course, well-known brands have breakdowns. And yet today, even some Chinese brands that have long entered the sales market can present quite reliable and durable chainsaws. A certain constructive advantage of the chainsaw is the presence of a full-fledged clutch, which creates an elastic and reliable transmission of torque from the engine to the chain sprocket. It is thanks to the clutch, the chainsaw at the time of the cut, that pinching of the headset consisting of a tire and a chain moving along it is not terrible. When pinched, the clutch slips, reliably protecting the chainsaw from breakage. A distinctive feature of a chainsaw from an electric one is the implementation of a brake actuation mechanism. On the chainsaw, when the brake is applied, the clutch is blocked, from which the rotation of the chain stops, but at the same time the engine itself continues to work. In an electric saw, from the actuation of the brake, the power supply to the electric motor is turned off, from which the saw turns off completely. Now about the cons of gasoline saws. One of the obvious disadvantages of a chainsaw is its more complex design compared to an electric one. And, of course, what I said above, a chainsaw of inadequate quality can cause problems associated with difficulties in starting it, constant repairs, or adjusting the carburetor. In the cold season, at sub-zero temperatures, it can be quite difficult to start a chainsaw. Sometimes you have to observe a certain rite consisting of a number of certain actions. For example, before starting, bring the saw into a warm room for 10 to 15 minutes, switch the air supply in the carburetor from summer to winter mode, etc. Before each start of work, the chainsaw must be started, for which you have to pull the starter handle. Such actions can be quite difficult, especially for women and the elderly. Also, the disadvantage of a chainsaw is the constant need for gasoline and its storage. Noise and harmful emissions during operation, due to which it becomes impossible to work with a chainsaw indoors, probably also will not be the merit of this tool. It is precisely because of this noise, gasoline and oil that many stop using a gasoline saw where there is electricity, and switch to network, electric saw options. Electric chain saw. Electric chain saws are divided into two types, network-powered and battery-operated, which we will talk about a little later. Networked electric chain saw. So, a networked electric chain saw. This product can be safely compared with a domestic chain dog, which has always walked on a short leash, and if they took him out for a walk, it is not very far from home, or rather from an electrical outlet. The electric chain saw can be divided into two subspecies with different layouts. The first type, the most common, it can be called traditional. In it the engine is placed across, and the second type has a longitudinal engine placement. Models with a transverse arrangement of the engine in the side part have a casing protrusion, in which the engine itself is located. Models with a longitudinal engine are distinguished by their compactness. They are much narrower, since they do not have protruding nodes, but at the same time, they are slightly longer than traditional options. It is difficult to answer the question of which engine layout is better, since there are also pros and cons here. Models with a transverse engine are structurally simpler, and in models with a longitudinal engine placement there is also an angular gearbox, but at the same time, during operation, the transverse version of the design is noted by many with better balance. Due to the fear of the complex design of the chainsaw, many prefer electric saws, and do not pay attention to its shortcomings, positioning it as a leader in the simplicity of the design, while undoubtedly having the first plus, a wide selection of electric saws with a lower price compared to gasoline. Now let's talk about the advantages of an electric saw. The power saw does not need to be started, all it needs is a power outlet, and when you press the start button, it is immediately ready to saw. The relatively quiet operation of the electric chain saw along with the absence of exhaust allows this tool to be used indoors. Some, to the credit of the electric saw, attribute to it a low weight compared to the gasoline version, but this is fundamentally not true. Of course, if you compare a small electric saw with a 30 cm headset and a power of 1800 watts, weighing only 3.5 kilograms with a powerful chainsaw, then there will be a big difference in weight. But if you make a comparison within the framework of one manufacturer, with approximately the same characteristics, tire length and power, the gap in weight between gasoline and electric, in fact, may not yet be known in whose favor. Well, since we are talking about weight, it is worth remembering a simple truth: the more powerful the saw, the heavier it weighs. This applies to both gasoline and electric models. Now about the cons inherent in electric chain saws. The first minus is the power outlet to which the electric saw is attached. You cannot go far, and you will always have to keep an eye on the cable, especially when working on the street. Also, it should be understood that this is an electrical device and it is a source of increased danger. Many manufacturers recommend connecting an extension cord with a saw through a safety cutoff device. Since, when working on the street and standing with your feet in a puddle with a power tool in your hands, the case may end in injuries. And even more so, you cannot work with an electric saw during precipitation. Another significant disadvantage of the electric saw is the sensitivity of the electric motor to the voltage in the mains. In some settlements, the voltage in the network may jump and do not correspond to the required parameters. In a situation of sagging voltage in the networks, when using an electric saw, rapid overheating of the engine and its failure is possible. The weak point of the electric saw is the so-called clutch, in which the spring or ratchet most often suffers. Also, the wear of the plastic gear of the chain drive is possible. These breakdowns are more often inherent in inexpensive, budget models and occur due to the increased load on the product that is not intended for these purposes. Cordless chain saw. Cordless saws can also be divided into two types, distinguishing them by the type of engine: brushless, or as they are also called, collectorless, and classic collector having brushes. If we speak in simple terms about their difference, we can say this: collectorless ones are more expensive, more economical, and at the same time more powerful than similar classic brush ones. A cordless saw is probably more suitable for hobbies or small household chores. With a battery-operated device, without electric wires and the roar of a gas engine, it is easy and convenient to go and cut branches on trees, remove overgrowth behind the site, or saw bars for a home workshop. And most importantly, such a tool is easier for a woman to handle. But, in my opinion, for example, going on a hike, instead of a cordless saw, it is probably much more honest and correct in relation to yourself, to take a simple hacksaw with you. Because you will know for sure that you have taken with you what will definitely work in the forest without chargers and outlets. How to take a cordless saw with you, the resource of which is probably enough for a one-time preparation of firewood for making a fire, and when the battery runs out. What to do next? For all its seemingly advantages, the cordless saw has a number of, let's say, quite fat disadvantages, which in turn are critically important when choosing a tool. The first drawback is the short battery life of the saw. And if, when sawing small slats or branches on a tree with a cordless saw, you cannot worry too much about charging, then taking such a saw to cut a thick and damp log, you need to understand that the battery will run out quickly with such a load. The battery variant is definitely good looking, but with the right priorities. Therefore, it may be more correct to consider a cordless saw as a kind of assistant in the house, for occasional work here and there, but a serious worker, I would even say a hard worker, should be considered between the gasoline and the network option. Summing up, I would like to say the following. When choosing a chain saw, think carefully for what purpose you need it. When goals are clearly visible, it is much easier to make a choice and make a decision in favor of one or another option. Many, oddly enough, have both a gasoline and a mains saw, and some even a cordless one. Therefore, weigh carefully and foresee everything. On this, let me finish. I wish you only a reliable and serviceable tool. Do not forget to subscribe, and if you liked the video, put your likes. Good luck to everyone and see you soon.